So we've been out to our communities and we've talked with a couple of chiefs and some council members with respect to what is economic development, and they really wanted to get a better handle on what that actually meant for a community and community development and economic development that occurs at a community level. And I just mentioned to them, I said, I tell you a story about how things are as a community level. You have to understand that we're not really adverse to a lot of the economic challenges that are occurring on a national scope, on a provincial scope, on a global scope. So we're not really as impacted as all that from that perspective. And so I always go back to the same story that I tell them, is that when you're talking about economic developments, I said our people I said the general population is not as advanced as you think it is. I said it was only 200 years ago that most of our populations believed that there was dragons. There was 200 years ago, people were out there, dragon slayers, and thinking that there was dragons, and people were afraid to go out at night, and so all this dragon myth and lure still comes forward, and it impacts. It's on TV all the time, and so anyhow, as you're talking about the dragons, and you're saying so it's 200 years ago people were believing in dragons. Today people now have a new reality, and they realize that there are no dragons. But the real issue that most people have in today's society, I said, is that most people now believe that there's another dragon that's out there that really impacts them at a community or on a national, provincial, and federal level, and they call that dragon the economy. And so what happens is, I said to him, is that most of our people that are in the world actually focus, and it's not most, because in third world countries the economy is not really the driver for them. As you're looking in third world communities in Canada, our First Nations communities, look at it from the perspective, their biggest concern is how do we put food on our table. It's got nothing to do with what's going to happen with the oil prices, what's happening with our mining prices, or any of that economic dragon that impacts the rest of the world. So as I talk to them about the dragon and being able to to look at it from that perspective and say that that the economy within our community environments are just starting to grow and are starting to develop. So they're not impacted by these dragons that impact the rest of the world. So as we're talking about economy, I talk to them about how the economy needs to change from where we're at with a reliance on federal funding, a reliance on provincial funding, to be able to make it more of a community environment that is becoming more self-sufficient and self-sustaining. And that means that as you're looking at economy, and it's all about GDP, and it's about the general pricing on the stock markets and everything else like that, but really that doesn't impact our people. So when we talk about economic development at a community level, we talk about what it means to have your own store, and how that impacts your community, and how it drives a lot of different sectors within the general population, i.e. there's somebody supplying the milk, to somebody, farmers that are there, how that impacts our communities. Also too, with more respect to that, we talk about how do you start to develop housing when you don't have enough resourcing. So you need to start looking beyond that general source of revenue that we're getting right now, and look at how we can start to generate our own source of revenue. So when we start talking about economic development, we talk about opportunities that aren't so profound for them to understand, as far as we need to have a mine in your backyard, and it's going to take over all this other stuff. So we have to start looking at how does that really impact from a sustainable point of view. And look at how a long-term economic plan will really benefit their community. And when we talk about an economic plan, that doesn't also include, what's happening on a national level. It's more about what's happening within the local environments, and how do we get more activity occurring that will benefit them with respect to resourcing coming into their community, because the GDP for a community that has been always kind of reliant on others to assist, to provide resourcing for them, is really not the biggest factor. So, as I talk to them about the dragons that are out there, and the myths that are really perpetuating all of the change and development that occurs within the world view, you can't impact them too much with that. So you have to do that from a mythological perspective. And then you have to really look at how they can start to develop economic development at a community level and make things more beneficial for them. So it's about working within the community to try and really build a good, sustainable economic environment. And when you talk about sustainability, it's about getting people from within that environment to go to work and be involved in the change that needs to occur at a community level to make them more beneficial with respect to resourcing. So with that, there's a lot of economic development that can be developed and we can make happen. So don't be afraid to call us, because we're here to give you a hand up, not a handout. Thank you.